And Kevin, welcome. It's good to see you again. How are you?
You're doing great. When you said season, it made me feel a little old, but I'm
I know
still
I didn't
young.
write that one. I was like, I came out. I was like,
I'm like, wait a minute
no.
now, but hey,
I
listen,
was like, I know I'm going to hear from Kevin about that one.
it's all good. It's all good. My grandmother says, if you don't get older, you die young. So that's okay. I'm seasoned.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? No one likes an unseasoned meal, right? Like it's got to have a little spice.
Absolutely.
So Kevin, can before we jump into the questions here, can you tell me a bit about yourself, about your journey? How did you arrive at United Health Group?
Oh, I appreciate the question. And first, I would like to express, my appreciation for this opportunity to share in the Power to Fly platform and this diversity reboot series on amplifying Black excellence. When I reflect on who I am in my journey, both personally and professionally, I really reflect on my foundation, right? That foundation that was really instilled in me at an early age was really predicated on faith, family, integrity, and education. And this has really, truly served as an anchor in how I navigated and continue to navigate my career. Before I am a vice president, Hunter, I am Kevin. I am Kevin, the son,
Mm.
the brother, the proud uncle, the family man. I'm the country boy at heart, right? Who was raised on the south side of Chicago, but spent all of my summers in Mississippi with my now 97-year-old grandmother, who really imparted wisdom that I often reference in my day to day. And as I've
Mm.
navigated my career, Hunter, it's been very important to remember who I am versus what I do. So, my career journey, while not linear, has been rewarding. It has and continues to be really rooted in my ability to identify experiences, not just jobs that will drive meaningful and tangible impact, really that's making a difference for the lives of others. This primarily has been through the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries. Listen, from corporate accounting and auditing to talent acquisition, to leading an HR function in Australia, New Zealand, and the North Asia Pacific region, to now leading focused DEI people strategies. My journey has been one of intentionality, right? I mean, demonstrating flexibility and really the desire and willingness to be coached, demonstrate
Mm.
resiliency. And I focus on one of servant leadership. So that's really who I am and my journey to what I do.
That's so beautiful, Kevin. I love that. To know that who you are is not necessarily what you do, or like professionally career. I love that you spoke to faith, family, education. I love hearing about your 97-year-old grandmother. I'm a mama's boy. I'm actually on a trip with my mother right now and her two gal pals.
Okay, okay,
It's
okay.
so sweet, you know? And I was just, they're like, do you want to come? I was like, of course I want to come with you and your girlfriends. Like, if not now, when? Like, that's the best.
Yeah, I love my mom too, so we have that in common.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. You know, we got about 25 minutes. Can you share some maybe a pivotal moment or experience from your career that significantly shaped your leadership style and approach to DEI?
Yeah, probably for most, it's human nature for wanting people to like you and
Mm,
or to accept you, right? Who doesn't want to be celebrated, seen, heard, recognized? I mean, at least sometimes. But for the most part, you want to be liked. And there was a moment in my career where I wasn't formally leading a team, but it really shaped my what I view as my inclusive servant leadership. I was about 4 years into my career post undergrad, and I had an opportunity to lead a work stream on a transformation project that included global leaders and subject matter experts, many of whom I had previously worked with in really my day to day role. Hunter, I was very accustomed to them liking me, singing my
mm,
praises, and getting to a yes on decisions actually fairly quickly. But oh, did that change, right? When I had to
yeah,
communicate tough or less than favorable messaging and make hard decisions that were probably not the most popular, even when I knew I had listened to and considered their varying perspectives and preferences. But through wise counsel, I would say wise counsel and coaching of a mentor and senior executive, he said, Kevin, welcome to leadership. Everyone will not
Mm,
like you.
mhm,
Essentially encouraging me to lean into this new space, not being bruised by people not liking me for making a decision that, in this case, will more broadly benefit the people and the business. As a leader, I'm positioned and intentional to serve people, ensuring that I am understanding, welcoming, and hearing their diverse perspectives to drive better informed decision making. But sometimes you have to make those decisions to really serve the greater good, both in the short and the long terms. And so that experience really shaped my approach to DEI, right? And that it further really taught me the importance of, number one, flexing my style to accommodate others, while not
mm,
losing the fundamentals of Kevin, right? Who I am.
mhm,
It taught me the importance of listening to what is said and not said. Then it taught me more about inclusion. One of the things that I always say and that I've learned over time is that it is very easy to be inclusive when people are just like you. You have to be even
mm.
more intentional, though, and open when those differences surface. So that's really what has further shaped my thinking and my approach to my leadership style and shadow, but also how I think about DEI.
Yeah. Well, you're speaking to, as I like to define myself, as a recovering people pleaser. So,
Can't live
so,
your life that way.
I certainly could not anymore, Kevin. It wasn't working because at the end of the day, I wasn't staying true to who I am. Like you were saying, like you got to stay true to who Kevin is and be
Right.
able to flex your style and
Mm-hmm.
hear people and then
Mm-hmm.
take counsel and coaching from people you respect and then make an informed decision, not based off of, oh, I hope they like me, but this is the right choice based off of what I feel is the information I've been given.
That's right. And even if it's not the best choice, how you learn from that and
Mhm.
pivot the next time is even just as important, right? And that's a part of decision making. It's part of leadership.
Wait, you're saying you're not perfect every single time with every single decision, Kevin?
Absolutely not.
Who is, right?
Who is?
Human.
Who is? Who is? And you
Yeah.
have to be humble enough to
Mm,
own it, right? Ownership and
yeah.
accountability is also critical. Don't come in like you have it all together, because we all can learn
Right.
and get better as time goes along. So it's very important to remember.
Yeah. And as a leader, that is leading by example, that you're willing to bring your humility to a mistake. And I would imagine that helps other people speak up when they have a question or if they've made a mistake.
You just tapped into what psychological safety is in many ways. It's that candor. And when you are able and willing to say, I didn't get it right this time, here's what I learned, and here's what I can do better, you create that space for someone else to be able to embrace that and to speak up and learn and grow from your experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So embracing these mistakes, there's also perhaps, I would imagine, challenges that you've faced along your
Mm.
career. Was there? Yeah, I'm sure there's been a few. It's not
Oh,
it's not a
oh yeah,
light, easy space to navigate, right? Like
it's
we're this
not.
is you're in the business of having uncomfortable conversations and helping people.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I'm curious, were there some pivotal moments that happened maybe earlier on in your career that informed your style or your priorities that helped you down the line? Is there things that are repeated that you return to?
You know, I know you said from like earlier in the career in my career, but I really am reflecting on kind of when I made the transition to my current role and company. And when we think about challenges, many of us face challenges when there are moments of transition, right? And how do you effectively navigate them,
Mm,
whether you are
mhm,
transitioning to a new role, a different function, a new job? I've always had that slight pit in my stomach, right? And my mom always taught me that having that little pit, it humbles you, Hunter. And it reminds you
mhm.
that you can't do it on your own. All right. So just some free advice from my mom. When I transitioned into my current company and role, I didn't have an established network. I didn't fully understand the culture or the cultural norms. And in many ways, I was learning a new and different business model, even though I was about proximate, given my experience in pharma. And oh, by the way, it was almost 10 times the size of my former company. So there were days I was like, really, Kevin? How are you going to navigate all of these new things? But over time, and still to this day, I realized that I have to do a couple of things. One was show up and show up every day, authentically and unapologetically me as Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, when I think about it, I really had to be willing to be a student, not only for other leaders, or not only to other leaders, but a student of my team, actively listening and learning with and from them. Now, you still have to display a certain level of confidence while demonstrating humility, knowing that, you know what, I am here for an appointed reason. My experience is relevant. My experience is diverse. My experience have merit. And my experiences are both broad and deep, right? Demonstrating the courage and willingness to speak up and challenge the status quo, even when it's unpopular. And finally, Hunter, had to know and still have to know when and how to ask for help. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about
Yeah.
it just a little while ago, and the ability to demonstrate accountability and owning mistakes or missteps, and then learning and improving from them. And what I will say, and then we can move on. Um, you know, we often, especially certain groups, are very focused on proving ourselves. But what if we flip that and say, how do we actually improve? Right? As long
Mm,
as you live and have all your faculties, Hunter, there is always an opportunity to learn, grow, and get better.
yeah. I love the asking for help is so huge. It's been a big shift for me in my life as well. I definitely identify with that. I had a mentor who was coaching me on asking for help. And he said, well, what do you do after you ask for help? I gave him this blank stare. I was like, I have no idea. He said, you ask
Mhm.
for more help. You ask for more help. I was like, oh, right. Okay. And
That's
that
right.
changed everything, right? Because then I don't need to prove that I know everything, right? I need to be able to, the only way I'm going to learn is if I ask more questions.
That's right. And then build build a team around you, right? You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
even be a formal leader and have direct reports. Get people who are experts in other areas, or if there's something that you want to learn, get them on your team, because there's something that they can give and add value to your experience. And then you pour into them. Maybe there is a skill set and a capability or an opportunity that you have. It can be reciprocal. Don't think again that you have to do it on your own. And this is at all levels of leadership. This was true for me when I was an analyst. It's true for me now as a VP and as I continue to progress in my career. But you have to be willing and humble to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that leads perfectly in the next question, which you're already answering in a lot of ways. There's a lot of folks that are looking to advance their careers, and I'm curious if there's practical advice that you could provide for professionals looking to overcome obstacles, seize opportunities, and progress in their career paths.
Okay, now I want to take my time with this, right? Because this is very important, and I'm going to share from what I have done personally and what I do with my team. First, do a true self reflection and an inventory of where you are both personally and professionally in your life. Think about it. The trade off decisions you made 5 to 10 years ago may look vastly different to where you are now and what you want to do, and maybe where you want to go. Rank order them in order of importance, right? Given where
Mm,
you are in your life and where you want to go. And I want people to rank order these things. Security. Do I
mm,
want to be in a more stable or perceived stable industry? A role that you believe is a little bit more secure? Think about location. Am I mobile? Can I really do a hybrid job, or no, it has to be remote? Money. We know money is important, but is that going to be the critical determining factor? And is it base pay? Is it variable pay? Is it total compensation? Advancement. What's your timeline? to advance? And how do you personally define success? Not anyone else. What do you think that means? And then challenge. What do you think will push you and make you the most competitive? And the beauty of starting with this first exercise is that there are no wrong answers, Hunter. It is actually what's right for you. You have to do that first. And then what you have to do, put pen to paper, write the vision. Some may call it development planning, career mapping. At the end of the day, write it down. And I like to think about things in threes, right? 3 responses or 3 actions. First, you got to ask yourself, what's motivating me, even if it's intrinsic? What drives you in life can really be the catalyst for your career, roles, industries, and next steps that you may be thinking about pursuing. I personally entered pharma and healthcare because I wanted to pay it forward for people just like my dad, who unfortunately succumbed at a young age to complications from diabetes. He and others like him are essentially my why. Second, identify what type of leader you aspire to be. All right. What is your leadership shadow? What do you want your legacy to be? Write that down. Then you got to understand your current brand, your strengths and your opportunities. It's always good to hear all of the great things about how amazing you are. But what are those opportunities areas, or at least the perception of what other people think? How are you showing up? Identify the key experiences that you need. Is it leading a team? Is it strategy development? Is it launching or global implementation? And again, I said experiences, not a job, right? And then what are those developmental areas that you have, the actions that are associated with it? And now once you've done all of that, you can now say, what are the type of jobs that I want, right? How can I talk to my leader or my personal board of directors to intentionally and strategically think through actual roles and opportunities that will accommodate all of the steps that I just mentioned above? And this process that I'm talking about, it's not perfect. It can evolve, but it really is going to help you create the focus you need to really seek the advancement in your career and actually develop skills, capabilities, and your competitiveness along the way.
Wow. Well, I have good news for everyone. This is being recorded, so you can go back and watch that part again and again, because that is such an incredible roadmap, Kevin, for starting with that real core fundamentals of that base foundation of how you want to work up to what your ideal life is, your priorities with your career, how you show up. Just
And you know what,
incredible.
Hunter? I would just say doing that and mapping that out, it actually helps create and tell your story, not just about your career, but about you.
Right.
And that's what you have to focus on first is you, and everything else comes after that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's information for me, and then it helps inform, like you said, later down the line, like what your brand is and how you are presenting to folks, or what opportunities you are attracting, because it's a reflection of us that we've become clear on, about me. I've become clear on. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to watch that again. So you mentioned in that process challenges. Things are going to challenge you. What challenges Kevin now? What keeps you challenged?
My team in a good way. Right. Really just my thinking, right? Thinking creatively and new how to drive differentiated outcomes based upon what our business objectives are when we think about the evolving environments internally and externally. How do you really be intentional when you need to pivot, right? And prioritizing solutions that are not just short term, but long term in nature. And so that is something that is challenging me both professionally and personally now, and also patience. A lot of times we want things to happen overnight, whether it's career, whether it's a project, whether it's getting to a business outcome. as a leader, I've learned and continue to learn that patience is truly a virtue. And in my career, specifically in HR, you learn that sometimes you have to sow the seed, and it may take a couple of years before you see meaningful progress, but you got to keep working at it. You cannot become defeated, right? You may need to pivot, you may need to adjust, flex strategies, but you got to keep going. So for me, it's really creatively thinking and then demonstrating a bit more patience.
I love that. Because the way to, like you said, with in pharma and in healthcare, there's things that are out of your control, right? That just need to get approved, and the gears are going to grind however speed they're going to grind.
That's right. And in these industries, there are regulations and guidelines and rules for a reason, because at the end of the day, while we're trying to help people, we also want to protect them in the process.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and patience, it's one of the oldest ones, right? Patience is a virtue, but it is so true.
It truly
is. I gotta pause and just take a breath sometimes to be like, oh, and why do I want to get it done? Why is it just to check a thing?
Yeah.
Does it need to be done right now? Can it even be? And am I setting myself up for disappointment if it's impossible in this moment, right? So we have just a couple minutes left. We have a few questions from the audience as well. I hope we can get to some of those there. And as a leader, as a VP, how do you help shape the organizational culture to be more inclusive and equitable? And can you share some specific initiatives that you think have proven successful in driving positive cultural change?
Yeah, good question. And a lot of times, Hunter, we talk about initiatives, and I'll give one example, but I also want to focus on what you can do in practice, and in your practical day-to-day. And first, I recommend that professionals practice integrating DEI into their day-to-day behaviors, right? Interactions and decision making, whether you are at work or outside of work. Creating and fostering an inclusive culture starts with the individual and assessing where you are personally on the DEI journey, and then acknowledging where you may have some strengths and then opportunity areas. Daily, you have to be curious, but not to the extent of placing the burden on others to educate you. Asking questions, Hunter, is important, but self-directed development and knowledge attainment creates a greater sense of appreciation and safety, especially when you are seeking to understand and celebrate differences. And then use some emotional intelligence intact, but be willing to address behaviors, actions, and decisions that are not necessarily conducive, right, to making others feel that they aren't seen, valued, respected, or that they belong. If you're seeing behaviors and actions that and someone is made to feel that way, how are you standing in the gap? Are you addressing those behaviors? And then you have to offer grace, not only to yourself, but to others, but not at the expense of accountability, Hunter, and the opportunity to actually get better individually and then collectively. You got to offer yourself space, and for others to learn, grow, and actually model inclusive behaviors once that has been defined, specifically at your organization. If it's not defined, it's very difficult to understand, recognize, and measure it. But one of the things that we have done, and I think it has really been impactful, is our executive sponsorship program. We started off with a small cohort a couple of years ago, and we have expanded it, really looking at the diverse backgrounds and experiences of all of our employees. And when you do an executive sponsor program, oftentimes you think about the sponsee benefiting. But what we have found is that there is reverse mentoring that is happening, especially when you unite people and pair people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, different lines of business. It helps to create a sense of greater belonging, acknowledgement and celebration of differences, and also helps you get more proximate to the lived experience of that employee. And we all create culture. It is not just leadership. All employees create culture. And by doing that, we have reaped the benefits, right? We still are on a journey, but we have found that programs like that actually create and foster a more inclusive environment. But it also helps with representation. It helps with
Mhm.
network. It helps with um, representation, network, relationships, right? It has multiple benefits associated with it. So that's just one practical example that we have done at my current organization.
I love that. And I love hearing how the sponsor can help the sponsee helps the sponsor. It is this symbiotic relationship because you're coming from different areas. And what I also love is that it's never done, and that's good.
Oh,
It's an
it's never
ongoing
done.
process, right?
And
Isn't
it
just like, ooh,
evolves.
check. That's right. That's right. Culture evolves. We learn, new things come into the zeitgeist. It is an ongoing process.
Right. That's right. And you have to be willing to flex with it. And it's not a check the box, exercise, because hopefully, when you think about where people are and companies are in their DEI journey, you acknowledge it, right? Hopefully, as you go up the spectrum, you are moving from compliance to commitment. It's not
Mm,
because I was told to do it, it's because I want to do it. It's necessary to do it. There's value and benefit in doing it.
yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's got to start from within in your own life, right? Like DEI is not a siloed experience that you can do over here at work and then go treat someone out in the street terribly. Like that, those two things can't coexist, right? You got to do the
Right.
work internally and then you got to want to do it. And it's actually it's exciting when you get on board, you know.
So when you get on board,
As long as you got to get on board,
that's the key.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for this. It's just flew by. I appreciate you so much for making the time today. How can folks best keep the conversation going with you
Follow
if
me
they
on
want to reach
LinkedIn.
out? There you
Reach out.
go.
Reach out.
LinkedIn. Yeah, great.
Offer me
Okay.
grace as I pace myself to respond, though. But please reach out on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. It's a reoccurring theme here, we love LinkedIn, but it's also like, hi, thanks for your message 3 months ago. So thanks. So thankful to be reaching out. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Have a great rest of your
You
day.
appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Yeah, take care now.